morning and welcome to Talking Points. If you're joining us this morning, we are grateful for your audience because considering the weather and the latest weather updates, I know people are quite busy this morning. Some may be panic buying. We encourage you to desist from doing that. Actually, don't panic. Usually here in Trinidad and Tobago, we're very blessed and fortunate. However, if you don't have any toilet paper at home, I completely understand. Now it's time to panic. Anyway, alongside me this morning is my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And it's a wonderfully overcast Wednesday. Most people might think that's not a beautiful day. And for the whole week, I've been saying, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day. Today is a beautiful sunny day. Today is a wonderfully overcast day because I prefer to be in the cool and in the heat. So I'm just going to
But you would also prefer to be in your bed for weather like this.
Well, you know what, you can't have everything, Keaton. Don't be greedy, you can't have your cake and eat it too, at least not all of the time. However,
you can actually. If you get 2 of those cupcakes that come in that one pack, you can have one and you can eat the other one.
But that's not cake, that's cupcakes. You see, if you want to be technical, you have to get all your technicality ducks in a row.
Still cake.
Anyway, folks, while we can't necessarily have our cake and eat it too, what we can have, or who we can have, is one of the trio that started this show, our usual Wednesday contributor, as well as someone who has made a little bit of news, the last couple of days with a teeny tiny, small, minor announcement that,
Come on, Sean,
most of you might have overlooked.
You're exaggerating now.
Oh, yes. A very humble, simple undertaking that she has decided to partake in. Of course, I am speaking of former Minister of Finance and Attorney at Law, Karen Nusashero. Good morning, Karen. We have been anticipating this week's meeting with you to hear from you, the lady herself. How are you doing?
I'm doing well and always happy to be with both of you and your viewers and your listeners. And you would know that had I made that announcement or the announcement had come out earlier, you would be the first to have been told because you know how my personal feelings of loyalty to WESN that has always been supportive and has always been willing to give the facts and to give the news in a way that is not, in my view, biased or motivated by other considerations. They guess maybe, but not either view.
Well, Karen, and we appreciate that because of the relationship that Sean and I have built with you over the last year and a half. And nomination day is next week, Monday, and the internal elections. It's essentially the future of the People's National Movement because Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has made the argument. Though he said this is his last term as Prime Minister, he still believes that he cannot be Prime Minister without being the political leader of the party, and therefore he is going to contest that post. With all that, though I know that you have had many interviews and many reporters and journalists contacting you since you made your announcement last week, for the sake of us and our audience having a better understanding, at what point do you make this decision, and what was your reasons for wanting to get back into political life and more so lead a political party, especially now in Trinidad and Tobago and the world?
So I'm going to answer that question, but I think I will have to, out of responsibility in terms of the process, which I intend to write a letter on it, because I think there's some concerns about the I wouldn't want to use transparency, but the opportunity, whether intended or otherwise, to compromise the integrity of the internal election. So to answer your question first, what I've said, and you know that when I have been on the show, that most of the contributions I make are either political or politically tinged in the sense that not political in the sense of fighting any party. I don't try to do that, but certainly from the position of looking at the state of our economy and things that may not be going right and things that may need to be adjusted, apart from other issues that have come up over time. So I think in the last 2 years in particular, my writing articles, my participation on this show in particular and others has sort of acted as an incentive, a motivation for me to say, wait, you are another armchair critic. You need to do something more than that. And I finally made the decision really because I was approached. Initially, I hesitated. And then I said, why not? And there are a number of reasons why I felt I could do it. But in any event, I have thrown my hat in the ring. And we shall see how it goes. The one thing I want to say before you question me further, because I was called at least by 2 or 3 people who are in the party who have expressed concern to me, and I will have to write the article. Now, I'm going to say this as I usually do. I myself have not checked it because the conversations came to me late, and I like to check. But my understanding is that there will be 3 days on which you can vote, and of course, on the day of the conference, you could vote again. One can't understand the need to have to stretch it out for the 3 days. And the reason why in national elections where anybody over 18 can vote, it's 1 day, and that is usually the pattern all over the world. And there's good reason for that, because what you do not want to provide, whether intentionally or otherwise, any opportunity for tampering with the boxes. I'm not accusing anyone of that, but you put in the credibility and the integrity of the process into question, and that should never be the case. And unless I'm given a very good reason that outweighs the risk involved in compromising the integrity of the process, when it's not the country that's voting, but it is the registered voters of the PNM, and even then, you have to be registered, I understand, 3 months before you qualify to vote. So the whole idea of going through the process, and not even in 3 consecutive days, 3 different days, it defies logic to me, and it brings an opportunity for, in my view, for persons to accuse those in charge of being able to or those in charge or those who have access to the boxes, however you want to put it. It's not a good look, and it's not a good thing to do. So I would want an answer for that, because it defies logic, and it creates, and in fact, the people that have called me have all expressed, because they are more involved in the party politics than I was, saying to me, this is what happens, you have to, the logic behind it, where are those boxes being kept? Who is sealing those boxes? What are the measures to put in the boxes in a place that they can't be tampered with? And why stretch it over 3 days and not even consecutive? Why is the need for that? People can come and vote 1 day in the year. 1 day. Everybody over 18 can find time between 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening to vote. So why the need for all these days?
I think it's a key point, because whether the current or incumbent PNM executive might appreciate it or not, or they might not want to admit it, now that there is a serious challenger, and it's not just they're going through emotions and they're going to proclaim the incumbents to continue on. And given the circumstances of the country, the internal elections will be watched by the nation. We already got that sentiment from at least one newspaper editorial. So any hint of impropriety would potentially be an avenue for critics of the government, including the opposition, to discredit them or discredit them further, which could have a domino effect leading up to the subsequent general election that might have made the situation worse, not because of any sort of policy decision or any sort of government messaging, but because of an internal party election, making the party that makes up the government be suspicious. And suspicious activity is potentially all you need now. We've seen what happened in Tobago, so it's not as though an incumbent political party with a long-standing tradition is immune to being thoroughly kicked out of their position. With that
and you see, Sean, I have to add with that, don't close the gate after the horse has bolted.
Yes.
Because it's no point. We have to be proactive. So the government, and I will write the letters, the government, the party must understand that we are asking for an answer. Now, the usual response when I have asked questions, including about CL Financial report, there's radio silence. What does that mean? It means either you don't want to answer the question. That's the first thing I take out of it, and so you wish I'd go away with it. But I think we have to be proactive. We don't complain after the fact, because it won't matter. And one other thing that is not lost on anyone, because I have gotten so many calls, so many texts. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm just telling you what I've gotten. Mm-hmm. But what has been consistent with all of that is this thing, they're all looking at this as not just a party politics and an election, but to be honest with you, and the way that it's been expressed to me, a change in the leadership of the party and of the government if the PNM were to win a new leader. And they understand that. And they understand that is what it's about. Now, I don't know what will happen, but what I do want is fairness. And whatever the outcome be, let the outcome be. But there's a lot at stake here, and the party does not need unnecessarily to put itself in a position that persons can question the process. And I could tell you, they won't care after the election because it's a done deal. So we have to see it now.
And well, the unfortunate thing is I suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect because this message is coming from the people who are saying it, they would probably want to discredit it or not want to hear it and try to find reasons to go against it because they just won't want to believe it. That's what I suspect. That's human nature. They'll be too caught up in the election competition and not necessarily objectively looking at, hey, we do have to consider the long-term health of the party after this into the election, whatever the results are. But speaking of that now, I am curious to find out, because politics anyway is not easy. You know, you've already seen it from the inside, so you've seen how tough it could get, to put it very, very, very mildly. I do have to ask, do you have any concerns with regards to what this might cost you? Because the politics around the world are littered with stories with people who unfairly treated by the media, unfairly treated by voters, or just the process of it takes so much out of you and exposes you publicly in a way that as a TV commentator you're not going to be exposed or scrutinized by.
Just to add to what Sean is also asking, Karen, essentially to break it down, let me not mince words. You've made yourself a target by going up for this. There is no doubt about that. You've also made yourself prone to attacks from currently within the People's National Movement. We don't know what the situation is, but in terms of those who sit on a Keith Rowley administration, we do know how it can get. And essentially, you've put yourself in the firing line. So, everything that you're doing may be with good intention, but there is a lot of risk involved in terms of attacks against you and your personal character.
Well, the good thing is it was just unintentional at the time, but, things have a way of preparing one. And I served as the Minister of Finance in a Manning administration. And whilst the period was not as long as I would have liked it to have been, I certainly was faced with a number of challenges, and some of which, when we talk about implementation, I think that if I look at my record, and if the record is looked at objectively, I don't think people can see, but she sat there for 2.5 years and did nothing. We had the property tax. That was completely passed through both houses. We were actually ready to send out the bills, and Prime Minister said, no, let's hold on that. And we haven't really had much changes to that tax act, whether we like it or not. The Revenue Authority had been passed in the lower house, and that's, I think, when the Prime Minister called the election. The TTIFC, we had Lehman Brothers signed an MOU to enter into the, to lease space in the IFC, so that we wouldn't just be a backroom operations. Of course, the global financial crisis occurred. And then I unfortunately oversaw the collapse of the oil industry from $100 per barrel. Just in September, I was talking to Strauss-Kahn, who was the head of World Bank, and he was quite confident that prices were going to stay up. by January it had fallen to $23. So we had to go back with a revised budget. But to add to all of that, and a global financial crisis that was seeing companies like Bear Stearns collapse over a weekend and companies crashing and people lining up to get their money, I had to ask the Minister of Finance on behalf of the government had to deal with the CL Financial Clico crisis. And whatever may be said, we had no lines lining up outside of Clico, British American, no Republic Bank, 51% of which is owned by CL Financial, no any other companies. And I think that had to do with the fact that how it was dealt with and how it was presented to the people and the faith the people had in the way in which the government had handled the economy, especially in 2008, the year before. We saw the confidence and trust, and that is the test. And that was a very, very big test. I don't think many people would have liked to have been in my shoes, no matter what they say, to have to deal with something like that. And I did deal with it, and I don't think whatever criticism one can make, one can say that whilst I was there as minister, that the crisis was averted, started and paused, put us on a negative watch about 3 months because they wanted to see understandably how we were going to manage it. And then they took us off of that watch after 3 months because they were satisfied that we were handling it well. And although we were not in office for the whole of 2010, we nearly reached a balanced budget. What the then Minister of Finance unfortunately did was that he added as expenditure contingency debt, which you do not add because you leave that for the refineries, etc., that they can pay their own debt. And what he didn't clarify, as the minister this time did, is that the Heritage Stabilization Fund, monies taken out of it, would increase your expenditure. So all in all, I think given the challenges that we were faced, the Gambling Commission, the Revenue Authority, the FIU, the collapse of the dollar, the CL financial crisis, which was up gargantuan proportions, I think that I have proven myself that I'm willing to implement and do what I have to do. The other thing too is, of course, many of the players in there who are current cabinet members and prime minister have had experience of over 30 years. And it makes me wonder, what did those 30 years teach you? Because it seems it didn't teach you the act of implementation. So I think I understand some of the players, and you don't go into politics with a fairy tale approach and think that everything is, light and air. It is not. You have to be mindful of that, but you have to have a vision. You have a mission, and to me, my mission and vision was very much influenced by Mr. Patrick Manning, who used that Vision 2020 and got a number of people to assist. But it was inspired by the UNDP developmental goals, and I am committed to doing that. So I don't know that I'm unprepared. And being a Minister of Finance, finally, it did give me the opportunity to have that macro view of the economy, which, as another minister, you would tend to focus on your ministry as well. You should. But if you're the Minister of Finance, your job really is to take that broad macro approach in terms of how you allocate funds consistent with the strategic objective of the government, which I'm not sure we've heard much of that from this government, but be that as it may.
Well, Karen, I'm going to ask you to pause there because we're going to have to take a break now here on the program, but a lot more to get into with the time that we have available with us this morning. So let's break here now on WESN. When we reach same talking point, we'll continue with Karen Nunes Teixeira, who has announced her intention to run for political leader of the People's National Movement. We'll be right back after this.
Smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories. and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point. My co-host Sean Michael Small and myself this morning were joined by Karen Nunes to share our usual Wednesday commentator, but this morning is with a twist following her announcement of running for political leader of the People's National Movement. Karen, I want to go back to the very first question I asked you as to when was this decision made and you know, why now? And you answered that, but you also mentioned that initially you were approached and you hesitated. Now, my question to you is, who approached you, if you're willing to share that information, but also whether or not you have a slate that is running with you, and if they're members of that slate, if you're willing to reveal that information this morning, or if you're running solo.
Well, to answer your question, I was approached by what I would consider persons who are disenchanted. And I was very careful to find out why they were disenchanted, because I found in politics oftentimes when people take very harsh positions against a party, it's usually personal and it's not about the policies or what the government has or has not done. It's because they lost a contract, they lost a position, they lost a chairmanship, they have an axe to grind. And I don't want to be associated with that.
These are people inside the PNM who were disenchanted that approached you within the People's National Movement?
Yeah, but not within the party structures as we understand how these structures are. Within the party and persons, as I would prefer not to call their names, but what I wanted to be satisfied about, because I do not want to be part of any associated with anybody who has an axe to grind. Because if you have axe to grind, you don't do it with me, because I do not have an axe to grind. I have my objective based on my experience, based on my having been in government and in a central role at a difficult period, and observing how the government has performed, and most I think the thing that stands out the most, I would have to sum it up, which I've done it on other occasions, is their lack of implementation. Even today, when I was reading that they increased their capital expenditure by 46.6% over the previous year, the writer then broke down how that money, that capital expenditure, comes from the Consolidated Fund and the Infrastructure Development Fund. Unlike the Consolidated Fund, money put in Infrastructure Development Fund does not have to return to the Consolidated Fund at the end of the year. But if it's unused and it came from the Consolidated Fund, it goes back in. But the point I want to make is, and I took down the notes, and it goes to the implementation. And this is just today, when they said that they allocated the money. 2016 they allocated 7 billion, but only 4.7 billion was spent. 2020, 5.24 billion spent. 2019, 5.1, but I think 3.5 billion spent. 2021, 4.1 billion, but only 3 billion spent. I think 2022 is about the best year. They spent 3.5 billion. What does that say? You know, when you allocate money to an organization, or you use money for a particular purpose, you want to make sure that you can justify the expenditure and justify the allocation. And one of the things is the performance appraisal. And you might be surprised, the fact that you can come back and you have such a large return, it's not because you're doing a great job, it's because you're not carrying on, you're not implementing, or you're not implementing effectively. And that has really been the story of this government from day one. I laughingly talk about not about the property tax in itself, because that is a serious matter, but from the point of view that the minister said in January 2016 it would be implemented. Well, now we're in 2022. Apparently, from this budget, everything is going to happen in 2023. The National Statistical Institute, could you not have implemented that? I mean, was that such a hard deal?
But Karen, do you have a slate that is running with you?
I can't. You say a slate. I have support, and I just don't like to say too much, because when you say too much, they say the secret of success is secret. So what I will say to answer your question is that whoever has come forward to me and persuaded me that I should put my hat in that ring has done a good enough job to make me comfortable enough that I can go forward. So right now, my greatest concern, which was brought to me by that very same team, is the question of the 3 days, not consecutive, and why for people to vote. And that is a question because from their perspective, they're saying it gives opportunity. I'm not saying they will, but it certainly provides opportunity for the process to be compromised. So that's the main thing I'm looking at now. But other things, of course, we understand the power of the media now. We understand the importance of getting funding, the importance of having the persons who are registered and qualified to vote come out and vote. We understand that has to be it. But my saying that, I don't think you hire any PNM telling you what their plan is. So why must I tell them what I'm doing more than what they're doing? Let them come out, because they obviously know. The more I know is the more you can make adjustments. All is fair in love and war. And by the way, this is not a war against the party. This is, surprisingly for some, even though they may not like, some may not like it, is really in the interest of the country. Because they all know whether they would want to come out and say it, because understandably their chairmanship, their directorship, their positions as senators, being backbench, all those things, contracts are at risk. And it's not only this government, it's governments generally. So I'm not putting that on this government in particular, but I believe this Prime Minister certainly does instill fear in people. He certainly comes across by his language, which is oftentimes vulgar, base, and also lacking in taking responsibility. To tell people with the fuel, well, arrange the time you go to work different times. People have children, constantly telling them that's an answer. Use a bicycle. Let them all stop getting all that huge tax relief that they can buy $1 million cars and go on a bicycle and go to work and feel the pain. And then is it Shamfa Kajo lecturing people about how she came from hardship, but which I know was unintentional, over $57,000 worth of roaming charges on a phone. But we must forgive that. You let that go. And what really bothers me most is that the kind of callousness, the kind of disconnect, the kind of insensitivity that you're hearing from are coming from people who came from that difficult background. And you would expect them to understand that what they need and what people need is opportunity to make better. So I have outlined that on several occasions. I don't want to go into too much right at this moment in answering your question, but it reminds me, if I may say, of the French Revolution with the Palais de Versailles, which I did visit because you have to visit it to really see the ostentatiousness of that palais. I mean, and to hear that the people during that time in the winter, suffering, no food, their clothing, I mean, the poverty, and Marie Antoinette, whether she said it or not, being attributed to her, that she said, let them eat cake. This is how this government is operating, let them eat cake, you know? Mm-hmm. And they have to understand that the rank and file, whether they want to hear it or not, but it is true. They want change because they are tired of being treated as if they don't matter. And it seems that he is at the beck and call of a small percentage of people in this country and not looking after the interests of the others, except to give them subsidies so they could stay on a dependency cycle and cannot go to the bank without a piece of paper to say, listen, I own a piece of land, or the government has given me it, so I can borrow money to start a small business. Every one of the persons at the top in this country, because we all came here as poor, we all came here except for the French crew, the owners, and they were, by the way, given reparations for losing their slaves. But basically, they came here illiterate, uneducated. But what made the difference was they given opportunity. The Concordat was a start, giving people that opportunity. And I said this before, I don't know if on this station, that when Eric Williams made that announcement about the 80% on merit, the Guardian of the time compared him to Hitler. But were it not for that bold move, many of our people who were illiterate and uneducated and living under terrible circumstances, you might still say, look at them, no ambition, nothing. You have to give, that's why America is the land of opportunity. Mm. And it is painful for me to see that the government seems more focused on a 10% and it's not trickling down. That theory has been disproved with Thatcher and Reagan. It has been disproved. And it's time for a more Keynesian approach, a quasi-Keynesian approach that this government must take so that they can become entrepreneurs in their own right, contribute to development of the country, and purchase from the same 10% so that we can all benefit. And one other thing I noted in the budget, while the minister spoke of small and medium enterprises, he left on micro, and I don't know if people know, I think I said it on one of the other shows, that a micro enterprise in Trinidad means that you employ between 6 to 25 people and you're grossing $5 million a year. So, I mean, you know, are you serious? So you have an opportunity to do what they're doing in England. They have huge uninflation, 10%. One of the measures, we wait and see if it works, but it's to try and grow the economy. And this is an opportunity for the Prime Minister to reduce the food import bill and create a market to table apprenticeship. We have a Ministry of Agriculture. We have a Faculty of Agriculture. In fact, we started with the Imperial College, and that was in agriculture. So we have the know-how. We can learn from Holland because they're using technology. And so there's so much I could say. But what I will say is that this government, and this is what people feel, is they feel disappointed, zero or no implementation, not being, not inspiring confidence in their model clearly can. You see that her real GDP is 9.5% or 10.5% after coming from negative 40%, and they don't have oil and gas. So it just is very disappointing to me. And the people who are upset with me, understand that I have no horse in the race. I have no cocoa in the sun. If I had, they would have put it forward already. I can assure you, they would have destroyed me already. And they are unable to do that. So the Prime Minister could release his self-financial report to help them to understand what they do not understand and what maybe he doesn't want them to understand, and give somebody else an opportunity to transform the economy so that all of us can benefit.
Well, Sean, John Maynard Keynes versus Hayek and Friedman, what Karen was stating, Keynesian approach to economics here. Certainly brings back some lessons from university.
I mean, I remember the names. I don't even remember which theory is attributed to who. I will say
what
this.
What it was is after the Great Depression, what Keynes said, he's British, and so this Keynes, I'm getting it wrong, it's Keynes.
Yeah.
But what he came up with is a theory that in order to jumpstart the economy, you needed more government intervention. Because if the government intervened by creating job opportunities, infrastructure, what that would translate into, people would have jobs, people would have more disposable income, and they'd be able to invest, they'd be able to save, and they'd be able to contribute to the economy. So whilst all of that is happening, of course, you have the monetary side of it. You want to temper the inflation because as people have more money, they intend to spend more and prices tend to go up. So it's a balancing act. I give Mr. Tukaran credit for helping me to understand that when I did my MBA. So what you really want is more government intervention, and it is particularly needed here because we are not Europe, we are not America, we are not Canada, where they can grow all the food they want, they take care of themselves. We are trying to do something to make sure that we can take ourselves up and lift ourselves up by our bootstraps. What Eric Williams has said, the concordance is an excellent example. And what we're seeing is that this PNM is moving further and further and further away from the objectives of the PNM. Not that you want one group to have and one group not to have. You want everyone to have. But you don't want the middle class to disappear, and you don't want to create a whole group of people in this country who are staying in poverty and cannot see their way out of it.
Well, I know we have to take a break, but we also will be saying goodbye to Mr. Shashira. Should we just ask our final question now?
Well, very quickly we can ask you.
I had said up to 8:55.
No, Karen, what we're going to do, let me just ask you our questions very quickly so that when we return from the break, you can go straight into it. I don't know if there's anything in particular that you'd like to ask, but I know that I wanted to ask you to address citizens over this situation of CL Financial and their thoughts of your involvement in CL Financial and that term of insider trading. Of course, this is going to be one of the things that most likely will be used against you in a campaign. So that is something that you should address, and I'd like you to do that.
What, now or we'll take the break?
No, let's take the break first. Yeah. So when we return, Karen, you'll have about 10 minutes to make that address, but we'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher Price, Cocomelon, Intex pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at Southern Main Road, McBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Karen, you have 7 minutes. I said 10. You have 7 minutes to answer the question of the scandal of CL Financial, as well as yourself and insider trading.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to have to do, which I blame my own self, probably because I thought I wasn't going to come back into active politics. I'm going to have to get copies of the 2 meetings that CL Financial had after the MOU was signed, where the chairman said that he sent, what's his name? He sent Montai to get a loan equivalent from the government, but instead of that, he went and signed an MOU, and that was the worst thing that could have ever happened to CL Financial. And right now, the government owns, because of that MOU, the government now owns Clico. He was beside himself. He had a meeting, then he had another meeting where that same expression was given about the signing of that MOU, which was not in their interest. So I just want to get 2 copies. I'm going to get copies of it because I could say it, but I want to be able to have it. I did have it when I was on the Commission of Inquiry as one of the parties. The other thing I wanted to get to is that the Integrity Commission, which I understand, but I cannot say who, was very much behind getting my head on a platter. Those are the words I was given in order to ensure that I had been involved in insider trading. Well, they brought on someone from Canada who tried his best and brought in all kinds of matters that were not relevant. But at the end of the day, they decided to write the DPP and made generalized accusations against me. And my team, which happened to have been Michael Pomina and Douglas Mendez, and finally said, listen, there's a time frame for going for judicial review of a decision, and we're coming close to it. So you either tell us what she did or what she didn't do, because you can't make an accusation without telling the person what the crime they are supposed to answer. And I got a letter, which I'm going to get and copy and make sure it's made available, that they grudgingly, I have to say, apologized and withdrew their accusations and apologized to me because they realized that if you went for judicial review, they would have been destroyed. The last thing that I wanted to say is that I think people mix up CIB with Clico. And why I say that is because even whilst the election was going on, I saw something on this executive flexible project plan, and what it was, that's where people really lost their money with the huge interest rates that nobody was paying. And it was being put out there that, yes, she had there, and she made sure to take it out. Well, I just want them to know that I went into CLICO, and I have the letter. Now I have to go and get a copy again, but make sure and put it up on the, for people to see, where they said they made diligent researches through all their records, and at no time did Mrs. Teixeira, nor her 2 children ever own those that product. So all this talk about taking it out from CLICO, that was a miss. That was clearly done to make people feel that I was involved with the EF, whatever they called it. The third thing, what I will say is what they're talking about is the CIB and my taking out the inherited money that I had gotten from my husband. And what they have not done, and what I have asked them to do, is do not go to the police. I don't need you to go to the police. You just go to the media, and you just say who it is that told me, or who told you to tell me. So just say who called you and told you to tell me, because up to now, they are not able to do that. What I find very amusing, and I have a letter from the governor of Central Bank saying that he only found out there was a problem in January 22nd. I had taken all my money earlier because they had treated my husband badly. We don't need to go through that whole story. I was disaffected, and I said I don't want to end the year without it. But that's another story. But the point is this. If I had that knowledge about a family-owned company, this is not traded on the stock exchange. This is not a state enterprise. This is a family-owned company. And if the Inspector of Financial Institutions, if the Governor of the Central Bank, if the directors on Republic Bank, if the directors of CIB, if the directors of CL Financial did not know that CIB was having a run, apparently they didn't know. Somehow the spotlight comes on me because somehow there is somewhere it should have come to me from some source, which I don't know where the source is. And in fact, all that I did, all that the steps I did were in fact are not in the interest of CLICO investment, because as I said, the meeting from Mr. Dupre expressing great anger, and also Mr. Montai not benefiting, because one of the things we did do is that we said that third parties would not include current or past CEOs or their family members. And that meant that Mr. Montai, which I didn't know it at the time, but I've subsequently found it out, why he was so busy trying to help. I couldn't understand why he was so busy trying to help. But I found out perhaps he thought he might have benefited from that payout, and he didn't. And if anybody has incentive to destroy me, and I think they tried, because I think they had a so-called PR company that was really an investigative company to find out who told me, and they came up with nothing. After 12 years, and a prime minister unwilling even to say what they said about me, even if you don't want to say everything about anybody else, say what they said about me. Say what they said about me, and bring forward the person. The fact that you can't, even I tell you not to go to the police, because I know that's the usual thing. They tell you, take it to the police. I'm telling you, take it to the media. Take it to the media and say, I called her, or I called Mary, I called John, and I told John to tell her. Just do that. I want you to do that. I want you to do that. And 12 years you haven't been able to do that. But somehow you can't go after the inspector. You can't go after the chairman or the directors of any of those organizations who would have had that information, because they were running the thing. I was running the ministry. So I'd be happy for them to bring it forward, because you see, the problem with them is this. They have looked hard for me to have cocoa in the sun. They've looked hard for me to compromise me. And the fact that I stand up and I'm sitting now. There's a joke about that, but I won't give it though. It was about Colm. It was very funny with, maybe I should give it. It was funny though. With Mr. Pandy.
Yes.
You know the joke?
Yeah, I know the joke. Yeah.
You know the joke. It was funny. But anyhow, I am sitting. I'm not standing. So what I would say is, stop the mauvais langue. Stop the shoo-shooing. If you believe in what you're saying, don't worry about going to the police. Don't worry to go anywhere. Come to the media, because the media won't publish it unless you come with proof. Have some sort of proof. Come with the telephone conversation. Come with the email because nothing disappears. It goes in a cloud. So if it's up in the cloud, you find it somehow.
Well, Karen, I'm just going to have to end it there, given the time is now.
Yes, I have to go through.
But this conversation, well, we'll have to continue next week. But thank you very much for your time this morning, and
thank you.
Well,
and I wish all the best to everyone, and even the Prime Minister, because I am a member of the PNM, and I'm certainly not fighting the person. I'm fighting the lack of performance of an administration that had 7 going on 8 years to get it right and haven't done it, and it's time for someone else to get a chance to do it, and someone who has a track record.
Certainly. Well, Karen, thank you very much. Sean?
Just Karen, I want to say thank you for still supporting the show, and for folks, I know Karen has to, you might realize, have to leave today's edition of the show, but she should be with us next week. So she's not avoiding your questions, callers. But
I have to go to court.
She has, exactly. Just want to make sure people understand this is not the goodbye of Karen Teixeira and Talking Point.
No.
But thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and I do have to go. As usual, I enjoy being with you and WSN. And just to say congratulations to Mr. Woodbrook, Mr. Porter-Spain West, Mr. Porter-Spain, whatever, on the launch of his new book in London. Congratulations to him.
So there we go. We shall extend it. Thank you, Karen. Have a good day.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
So, I mean, there's one thing that I wanted to discuss with her about, but I think it was maybe too generic, because the answer might have been obvious, and maybe next week we'll get into it. And I think it's interesting that, and as a nation now, we need to look beyond my party. Right? If I was a UNC supporter, I think it's important now, okay, there are disenfranchised people in the PNM, right? Do I have similar in my party? What is the reason? What is the scope of the reason? Because we're at a time when the government of the day, right? And I do believe if the UNC was elected in the next general election, they might face some of these same challenges and have to make hard decisions, right? The people are feeling overburdened, whether rightfully or wrongfully, whether they're perceiving it correctly or they have a misconception. And I'm wondering if this is going to force voting patterns to change, if we will see a change, because I'm not sure if anybody expected 14-1. We did have 10-2 in the PNM's favor. I don't know if now will we see a change in the central government, will we see the willingness, because Karen, as much as she was less than at one term under Patrick Manning, she's not like the members of parliament currently, where a vast majority are either brand new and their reputation is very short, or they've been in parliament for years and years and years, both as opposition and government, and you kind of have to wonder what could they bring to the table that we haven't seen already.
Well, I mean, yes, that's one way to look at it, but let's look at Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. People are hurting. People are frustrated, people are disenfranchised. So what do? Are we going to change our voting pattern, or are we going to stay with what we're comfortable with? We're the only thing that we know. Because as much as people are frustrated, and they may be full of anger, just remember that does not necessarily lead to a paradigm shift.
I know that, but we haven't seen, the last time we saw things as bad, there was a party that technically no longer exists. Right? So you could argue that there was a major shift in voting then. There was an unfortunate incident. There was a coup for all intents and purposes. As limited and as contained as it was. We now need to ask, like, when will we change then? I'm not sure if you said it or somebody else said it. It might have been Timothy Hammersmith. Do we have to really sink even lower than we've already reached?
What he said, unfortunately, that may be the case. But I think a true paradigm shift or a true shift in voting pattern will not necessarily mean be voting for the UNC or for the PNM, as has been tradition for so many years. It's only really the NAR and the United National Congress that has shifted that. Even under Kamala Persaud-Bissau, she had a partnership, and one
took a coalition.
One might argue that she may not have been successful if it wasn't for that coalition. But that's an entire debate. Point is, the shift that we would hope for and the shift that we would want is away from I vote in Kamala. I vote in Rowley. No, you have to move away from that. And
exactly.
And quite frankly, you could vote for any. Don't vote based off of party. Don't vote on who's the head of the party. But it is best if you always, even if you're PNM or I'm UNC, if I'm the best individual to represent your area and the interest of your area and the interest of your people, I would love to see that in Trinidad and Tobago.
That is kind of hard. I'll just say this to wrap quick. You know, it took a coalition to beat a Manning administration that fell out of favor, a prime minister that fell out of favor. And now we're in a situation where who are we going to vote for come the next general? If we are stuck with the current slates of each party that we're seeing in Parliament right now. Because we have one that's potentially growing, whether fairly or not, by the perception of people, more and more unpopular, even potentially within their own base. And we have another one that couldn't beat that. They lost twice to that same slate. So how are they necessarily seen as a better alternative?
The best thing for Trinidad and Tobago right now is if an independent candidate or a candidate from a smaller new political party
parties could
win a
change
constituency.
inside.
You know, parties could force change inside. It comes at a risk, and that is their job.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's break for WSN's news on the hour now. When we return, we'll open up the phone lines where you can share your thoughts and opinions with us. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Concrete slab hits schoolboy on head at San Juan School. Tutor condemns the Ministry of Education's lack of repairs to school infrastructure. Prime Minister says partnership government had plans to remove subsidy and increase utilities. And internationally, 25 killed in India bus crash. Now for the details. The litany of woes at our nation's schools continues. The latest incident has left a teen boy with a gash to the head which required 7 stitches. This after a concrete slab fell from the depleted structure and hit him on the head. The incident occurred at the San Juan North Secondary School. The child was traversing the corridor around lunchtime when tragedy struck. Well, in immediate response to this issue, Tutor's second Vice President, Curler Robertson Thomas, slammed the Ministry of Education for the delay in the repairing of infrastructure at schools.
The ministry continues to say that they have a priority list and they're all waiting on monies to be patched in order that some repairs can be done. And the comment on our side was, while we wait for budget and monies to be effective, people's lives are at risk. And sadly, to get information yesterday that this student had to endure that is really, really not nice. And there's several schools that are in this position.
She said most schools are old and children continue to be brought into an unsafe environment. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, in his contribution to the budget debate, said that the removal of the fuel subsidy and the proposed increase in utility rates were orchestrated by the former partnership government. He read from a contribution of the former finance minister in the year 2012. The 2023 budget was passed in the lower house last evening.
Therefore, within the next 4 to 5 years, which is 2012 to 2017, 12 and 5 is 17, it is now 2022. Most of the fuel subsidy will need to be taken out of the equation. That is the UNC Minister of Finance. But Madam Speaker, he went on further. He said in Trinidad and Tobago, our electricity, water, fuel and telecommunication prices are among the lowest in the world. As well as there is no land and building taxes, and health services and education up to tertiary education are also free. That was the UNC's justification and explanation for the condition in Trinidad and Tobago in 2012. But the copy of Madam Speaker, trying to incite public discord.
In international news now, at least 25 people have died after a bus plunged into a gorge in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand. Officials said at least 40 were on board when the bus veered off the road and fell into a ravine on Tuesday night. So far, 21 passengers have been rescued following an overnight operation led by the state's disaster response force. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that his thoughts are with the bereaved families. The bus was carrying a wedding procession from Ladhang to Birunkal village in Uttarakhand when the accident occurred. Well, that was news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for watching.
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce, the mega laugh festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Sun, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Welcome back. If only you can see what happens off air. We keep saying that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we one of our behind the scenes crew might actually join us maybe one day on the set, because he has a lot of opinions, folks. You know, but we can't get him to actually say it on air. Funny that, you know. But just before we open the phone lines, a quick thing to mention. The applications for the Youth Agriculture Shade House project, that will close this Friday, the 7th of October 2022. Young nationals 16 to 35 years who have completed secondary school can enter a full-time one-year program at UWI aimed at training a cadre of young farmers. For more information about requirements and the application procedures, interested persons are invited to call 612-9367 extension 3033 or visit www.mydns.gov.tt.
That was a public service announcement brought to you by Mr. Sean Michael Small. Actually, well done on that.
Well,
that's good. No, that's actually really good.
Not just that. I mean, the initiative there, this sort of thing, you know, this is a long-term investment. And trades, I think one of our callers mentioned it one day and we didn't have time. Trades, you know, every now and then when I remember I bring it up, trade schools. Because I have a friend, he wanted to do a couple of woodworking courses, take a career shift, thanks to how the economy was going. He couldn't find anything suitable. And not just for himself as somebody who was not, you know, a young adult, but he also wondered, well, what about the youths of the nation that may have gone into these various career paths but can't because they don't know where to start, because they don't have technical schools to teach them.
That's an issue throughout Tobago, actually, and I think that even though the existence of institutions such as YTEP and MSc is there, I mean, what is the participation rates and levels like? And even when you graduate with a trade, are you given guidance towards employment after you leave the institution?
Okay, we have callers, but I think a lot of the problem is we need all of these things to be first class, and it's not easy to get everything up to the highest standard possible.
Well, the phone line's open, the numbers are on your screen. We have a caller on the line with us from Petty Valley. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton.
Morning.
It is very unfortunate this morning that I directly speak to Karen. I have two questions for that she have to leave to go to court, but if she have to go to court, well, she have to go to court. So I'll ask the questions to you all. You all will be able to answer it, but I'll still throw out two questions in that interview this morning, Ms. Nunez. Having said that, Keaton, I want to congratulate you on that interview this morning, because it will be a very difficult interview. It might have seemed like you could have been biased interviewing because you all are colleagues, and I think you handle yourself very professionally in asking her tough questions. Having said that, one of the questions I wanted to ask Ms. Nunez this morning, you asked it, but I didn't get a good answer. Who is the people that approach her in the party to encourage her to run for the leadership of the party? I wanted to know if the people are in the party, the executive from the party, or from the cabinet of the party who approach her. That was one. That is a very difficult question for her to answer to her. If she didn't choose to answer, I will understand it. And the second question was, when she's talking about the process of the election of the PNM internal election, that election, the process was changed from the PNM to be a one-man, one-vote. That same process you're talking about, Mr. Manning run on that to oppose, to challenge Mr. Manning, and Mariano Brown run on that same process to challenge Mr. Rowley. And it come across to me from Ms. Nunez is before the election is saying that it is corrupted and it's corrupted and corrupted. So if you lose, you could come and say now the process is corrupted. So that is my two questions I wanted to ask her. Having said that, yeah.
So sorry, Sean, you want?
No, I think for your first question, I do think, and I could be wrong, so I would encourage people to check out the link later on to get her exact words, right? Don't just take my word for it. But I do think when asked the question about who encouraged her to go up for the election, the answer that she said was that it wasn't somebody part of the executive. So they were party members, but not part of the executive or the machinery of the party, I believe.
Oh, okay, okay, Sean, okay.
But caller,
I hear you.
Thank you for your call. Yeah. I will pass on your questions to Ms. Nunez to share. Hopefully she'll be able to give you an answer next week on that. But thank you very much. And just bear in mind one thing. I hear the point that you made with reference to trouble before an election. But I think, and I cannot answer on behalf of Mrs. Teixeira, but I would think that her thought process is, it is better to raise the concerns now than after the election, because if I raise it after the election, it's not going to look good in my favor.
And if I was on the other side of this election, I would want to eliminate those concerns. My opponent is giving me concern. Even if I'm not worried about what she would say after the fact, I want to eliminate it. I want to leave no doubt.
Yeah. So I hear you.
No doubt if I win.
I hear you, and your concerns are valid. I think she's just taken a proactive measure. We have a caller on the line with us from Dabody. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hi,
morning. Good morning.
You're live.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity. I have been a caller. I've been calling you all for the past few months.
Oh, yes.
And,
I recognize your voice. Yes. We haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just want to make two comments, though. With respect to Mr. Scherer, I don't think that she has the capacity or the party knowledge or party affiliate to really throw her hands in the ring as the political leader of the party. Mr. Teixeira has been a lifetime member, but over the past years, since she lost in W Mirror, and I can say that because I was her marketing manager when she won first, she, after losing in W Mirror to Mr. Roberts, she has never participated in any sort of program or policy or anything dealing with the People's National Movement. I recently was able to see Mr. Scherer on your program, and I've never heard her say anything positive about the economy and about the government, which is a People's National Movement run government. You guys are very critical, and at times you all call a spade when there's a spade. When there's time for you to really give kudos, you do give kudos. So congratulations to you. Unlike Karen, it's all about gloom and doom. I've never heard her once spoken about anything that has been positive in any of the ministries. Guys, I want to turn to MIC, the technical institution, and I think that the comments that you all are making, that you all are not informed, and as a member of the MIC board, I'd like to tell you that the amount of programs that have been offered by MIC, and we have infused entrepreneurship throughout all our programs. So therefore, not only we would have infused entrepreneurship, is that we would have signed MOU with a company that is able to take the graduates, the persons who have graduated, and help them do with respect to job placements and other things. So there are many, many programs. I think that I would like you all to visit our new MIC website. We are also on Instagram and also Facebook, and see some of the programs that are offered and what MIC is actually doing. I want to take hats off to Professor Imbe, who is our chairman, and a wonderful job that the MIC is doing. And we have done a lot of collaborative work with the Ministry of Trade recently. My DNS, the Ministry of East Port of Spain Heritage Association, East Port of Spain, and CCC. I mean, just name it. MIC has been there for it, and I think that is a new direction with respect to TVET. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for the opportunity. And I hope that you all have a nice day. And please do a little research on MIC.
Thank you.
You all will discover a lot of new things happening.
Thank you very much, Kola. It's good hearing from you again. I am aware of MIC. I'm aware of MIC programs, and I've been following it very closely with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the information that she has been sharing. That being said, I still appreciate the fact that you took the opportunity and made the effort to also inform Sean and I, because sometimes we may not know everything, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to share that information with us. So we encourage the public as well to go to MIC's website.
Don't have a problem being told that we're wrong when we're wrong.
Yeah, I have no problem being educated, actually, because I may not know everything. We have a call. I don't know everything. We have a caller on line with us from Shigonas. Good morning, caller.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I cannot agree with your last caller on Karen. Karen has always given constructive criticism. She named certain minor things I never heard about. If those things didn't come up in the program, how could Karen comment on them? I think it's a very good idea, and I hope Karen continue to listen to this program, because very pertinent comments are made by most of your callers. As regards yesterday, I think you confused my 2 points on Tobago.
Okay.
You have said you have to give this new administration, and I have given them all, but I've shown you the way they have wasted money. You have Duke traveling all over the world at public expense, and when he meets a group anywhere there, he wants the Tobago House of Assembly to send money for them without any proper documentation. You even had the original financing on that, which we cannot find out anything about. You're hearing about contracts being given out, and this is by this Tobago administration under very dubious conditions. And those are the things I'm talking about, judges. When the point came up with capital projects, that's a different point. And I showed where Tobago have always gotten by far more than they deserve, and they have wasted it on capital. Two separate points. Don't commingle them unless you have any questions, gentlemen.
I actually do not. I don't know if...
My only thing is some of the allegations to the contracts awarded by the current THA administration was levied, I believe, by Watson Duke. I totally agree with you with the Watson Duke point. The only thing, though, is that now there seems to be a split with regards to the THA in Tobago. We don't know how much support Watson Duke actually has.
But thank you very much, Professor.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, no, thank you.
But it's still a valid point, by the way, with regards to the contracts awarded. I understand what he's saying, and yes, those questions need to be answered.
Not a question to what you were saying, but a comment. I also agree with you with the Watson-Duke point, but I would also use it generally. Watson-Duke is an example, but we need a better accounting in terms of all these travels around the world for the purpose, the expenses, why these individuals are going on these trips, who's the delegation and why they are. We need information like that. So it's a general point.
The Secretary of Finance shut down the whole give the entertainers traveling money just with no proper documentation.
I heard there's a lot more to this story than has actually been made public. And I'm not in a position to divulge all that because I can't verify it.
I do think it's a mistake to not communicate more with us. That's the one fear that I have, that the PDP is learning some of the wrong lessons from the PNM because they might be afraid and they're not sure what to do. I don't know if they think this is positively the right thing to do.
We have a caller on the line with us from San Juan. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, a very good morning to Keaton.
Good morning.
A very good morning to Sean Michael.
Morning.
Yes. As regards Mrs. Karen Nunes Teixeira challenging Dr. Rowley for the political leadership of the PNM, I think it's very difficult, Now, I'm not too versed in the constitution of the PNM, but what I have been told is that some party group has to recommend whoever chooses to challenge the political leader of the party. Some party group, of course within the PNM, would have to nominate her. I don't know if Mrs. Teixeira has divulged which party group has nominated her. And another issue, I think the way the PNM constitution is built in, gentlemen, Keaton and Sean, is very difficult to unseat the political leader in an internal election, in internal party elections. This goes back to the days of Eric Williams and George Chambers and Patrick Manning. You see, in order for her to, where she would stand her chances of becoming political leader of the PNM, they have to go to the general elections, to the polls, and the PNM has to lose the elections, like what happened in the instance
in 2009,
with Mr. Manning in 2010, when the PNM lost the elections 29-12 to the People's Partnership, and then Mr. Manning was hounded out of Balijé House. He was literally kicked out of Balijé House because people were disenchanted with him calling an early election. But it is very difficult for Mrs. Karen Nunes Teixeira, with all due respect to the goodly lady, that you could go to an internal party elections in the PNM and unseat the political leader in the way in which the party, the constitution is built in. It's very, very difficult for her.
I hear you, caller.
Faces an uphill task. Yeah. I'll listen to your comments off here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. And I think it is a difficult task.
Yeah.
As much as Karen is a colleague, I will not shy away from that point. It is a very difficult task. This is why the point we made earlier is that she is putting herself in a position and making herself very vulnerable.
So I can't remember if I told you this or if I said this off air, but I was speaking to a member of the PNM when that snap election was called. Right? And I basically said, you're going to lose this election. It's the next election that's important. Rowley lost his challenge. But then when Mr. Manning fell, he got positioned. If Karen loses the challenge, she might still be positioned to be an alternative.
Well, there's a possibility. But we have two calls on the line with us. Call on the line with us is from San Fernando. Good morning.
Hey, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have to agree with you with that previous caller who talked about the structure of the PNM. It is designed for the political leader to stay there. It is very difficult to challenge the political leader based on how, even though they have one man, one vote, based on how those party groups are structured, they structured for them to support the political leader. However, what is interesting is that she was encouraged by non-executive members, right?
Yes.
I believe so.
No, she said so. She said so, yes.
Yes. However, for the fact that she's being encouraged to run, and in my opinion, looking at the party, I don't know if you all have noticed this. Mr. Rowley keeps saying, well, he came back because of you remember his speech on that, why he came back because of the COVID thing, because he was not going to go up and all of that, he said.
Yeah.
However, is there anybody there that you all see that can take the reins of that party? Look at the party right now. Look at the member. Look at who is in cabinet. And I mean, you have Imbut and what's her name? Penelope Beckles Robinson and the other lady there. Those are the three most senior people there.
Yeah.
There is nobody there. And this is and I think Karen has a better opportunity than a lot of us think.
Caller, you have made an excellent point that people shy away from making.
Yes.
There is nobody else right now within the People's National Movement.
In the PNL.
Yeah, there's nobody else. The only other two individuals whom I would have given a chance, whom are probably still not ready to be the political leader, would have been Penny Beckles or even Dr. Amory Brown. But I still don't think that they're ready for that position. If we had to look at the closest, it would have been those two, but you're right. I don't think there's anybody else.
Closeness and who we would want to see, not necessarily closeness of who the party would put.
Who we would want to see, but who's probably more suited.
Right.
That's right.
But I do think that there would be other people ahead of them. Thank you. Other people ahead of them that most likely would have been the next political leader if the status quo remained, which that's a whole other.
I think the goal of Faris Arabi was to eventually become the political leader and prime minister. I think that was his goal.
He's way down there.
I think the last 7 years has really sunk him. Yeah. Last caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Hi everyone, good morning, thank you.
Good morning.
Karen, I just wish to congratulate you on this bold move, particularly at this critical time when our country is spiraling into a bottomless pit, as this government has been an abysmal failure under Keith Rowley's leadership. And you have shown us your competence, strength, and more importantly for me and others, I think, your integrity. And if you're going to focus on one of my favorite topics, the 17 MDGs and Manning's 2020 vision for a progressive country, by the way, it's 2022, better yet. So best wishes to you. And just by the way, a poignant moment, Ketanji Brown Jackson, first female African-American Supreme Court judge, took the bench on Monday to kick off the new law term. So Lord knows the Republicans gave her a hard time, but she persevered, and boy, such class. So that's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, caller. I wanted to just this thing about Karen Nunes Teixeira probably not having a chance. I acknowledge that it is difficult, and it is going to be difficult.
Because she hasn't been politicking inside the party, and I think that's only to the caller from Dabadi.
I was just about to go back to that caller.
I understand that, but there's a part of me that actually likes the fact that she has not been doing the backroom deals and the politicking inside the party, because in political entities that can get very, very ugly, and that starts you down the slippery slope of what favors you have to get who support and blah 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 blah.
I'll be quite honest with you, caller from Derby. I acknowledge the points that everybody has made, and they're very good points. But there's so many angles that we could look at. So one of the angles that I would like to explore, and the point that you made, you haven't seen her in Davide, participating in any programs. You haven't seen her really participating in any PNM. She's never had anything positive to see. And those are fair points. I wouldn't say that she hasn't had anything positive to say. She has given credit where credit is due on this program before. Yes. She has given constructive criticism. The reason... Or a reason, need I say, not the reason, because I don't know, but a reason possibly for her not participating in programs or in PNM programs or however you want to call it, is probably because she simply was not allowed to. she probably was prohibited from participating in these programs. And the reason why I make that suggestion is because internally within the People's National Movement, we don't know what's going on. But the mere fact that she was under the stewardship of Prime Minister Dr. Patrick Manning, who fell out with Keith Rowley, and people who were under Patrick Manning's list said, this is a sinking ship under Manning, we have to move across to Rowley, such as Colin Imbridge, such as Camille Robinson-Regis, etc., etc. Even Penny Beckles, when she challenged Rowley for leadership, was sent out of Trinidad and Tobago. Bear that in mind. She probably was prohibited and not allowed.
I think we underestimate, because it's not just at the top. We're talking levels down. We're talking mid-level operators who they had to make a choice. And not all of them were probably even given the opportunity to make that choice. The choice was made for them one way or the other, or they felt that they won't have the opportunity. I just want to endorse, that's what I wanted to say as well. Karen usually says, we have to be fair. We have to be fair. And there have been times when she has had to rein me in, whether off-air, in off-air discussions, or even on-air.
Both of us.
Right? And there are times when she would even ask, but I was fair, right? Because we have to be fair. That is literally the phrase that she would use. It's just that I think these days, there's less good things to say about the government. Even when you try to find good explanations and you try to be fair, there's too many questions that lead to too many negative implications. And they don't have to work out to be true. But we need them to be answered, and when you're hiding the information from us, that also doesn't look good. You can't expect us to say everything's fine and we understand when things are rough.
And again, I think, that's just one of the things you could say the PNM has done exceptionally well. They've made difficult decisions, they made very unpopular decisions, they've put the population in a situation of discomfort, and they haven't been clear with us or communicated with us.
Yeah, it's a communication.
And yet still, they have that level of popularity, and yet still they've retained the office in the elections 2 years ago. So all that, I think one of the things, anyway, look, time has now run out of us. There's a lot more I could have said, but I think that is where I could really say that it's amazing what they've been able to achieve in that sense. Folks, thank you very much to all our callers for their contribution this morning, and thank you very much to Karen Nunes to share. She will join us hopefully for the entire program next week, Wednesday. Sean Michael Small, it is an overcast, it's a rainy day, it's going to be a windy day. So if you can, avoid the extra travels, avoid it if you can. That would be great in your favor.
Let me take a page from your book. Let me say this one. Today is a cool day, so it's going to be a good day.
And that's copyright infringement, so Sean Michael Small, I will deal with you off air. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN